It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on a Tomlin Tuesday. Alan, how we doing?
I felt like I don't know, like a cartoon of an octopus typing with like all 8 legs at the same time today. There was just a lot going on, and it's it's a lot of it's a lot of different stuff going on. It's going to be really hard when we finish recording this episode. We're going to be sitting here like, what do we call this? Because I think we're going to talk about like 9 different things here. It's just all different directions at the same time.
Yeah, for the people that watch or listen to this and don't get to see everything that happens behind the scenes, that what Alan just described happens basically after every episode where we're like, man, what do we title this? What do we use as the picture? Sometimes it's very easy, and then there's times where it's like newsy like this, it's on Tuesday, and it's kind of like a rundown of a bunch of different stuff, and that's where we struggle with it. But we'll come up with something. And by the time you guys are watching or listening to this, that will have already been done. So let's start with some.
And if you are watching or listening, then we probably did an okay job, because that's the whole point, is to get you here. So,
yeah, there you go. Let's go over some injury stuff first and foremost. There's a couple things to hit on here, a couple players, I should say, to hit on here. With Tomlin already rolling 3 guys out for this upcoming game against Indianapolis. That's Michael Pruitt missing a second straight game. And then 2 that are probably going to be beyond just this game, or actually we for sure know are going to be beyond this game. Alex Highsmith going to miss multiple weeks. And then Cory Trice, who injured his hamstring, already going to IR. So, what do we make of these? We knew the Highsmith thing was coming. We figured that is, where Herbig gets elevated. It's more about the depth now beyond him. We certainly both have a level of comfort there with Nick Herbig stepping into that role. But Cory Trice going on to IR is interesting. He's obviously played a decent bit of snaps. He got that interception against Denver. You mentioned was it just yesterday? Yeah, yesterday's episode. Thank goodness that James Pierre kind of fell into their lap. So that was more from like a special teams perspective. But certainly now, when you have this type of depth in your cornerback room taking a hit, they are very fortunate that James Pierre was kind of just sitting there for them to pluck.
Yeah, I think James Pierre now becomes an important part of their secondary depth. The good news is he has a lot more experience than either Trice or Rush did anyway, and it's experience in this defense, so that's pretty nice. He's also a really good punt gunner. He dressed over Rush for special teams purposes, so like not the worst case scenario in terms of the team's situation right now. I don't know that I honestly I like Darius Rush, probably not feeling as good about either their coverage abilities as Trice, but it's not like it's a disaster in terms of the roster right now. Rush can certainly be a dime corner. If they needed someone to replace Porter or Jackson, I would say neither of those guys really brings to the table what Trice brings in terms of pure coverage. But I think this is more about me. The disappointment of the trajectory for Cory Trice, who missed all last season with that knee injury, looked to be really playing pretty well and getting some extra reps, and now 4 weeks at least seems like it's a pretty significant hamstring injury, and sometimes those can linger as well. So I think this is a big setback for what appeared to be this was a season where Cory Trice could have gone out and said, you guys don't need to re-sign Dante Jackson. You don't need to re-sign anybody else. I'm the guy. I'm taking that cornerback 2 job. And not to say it still can't happen, but it's certainly going to be a little tougher now, I think.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the best ability is availability, and we saw him miss an entire season. We know the injury history, and now he's knocked out for 4 weeks here. I know it's not necessarily the same thing. That's obviously good that it's not his knee, but we don't know how much time he's going to miss. At least 4 weeks. But these hamstring injuries can obviously linger. So, best luck to him.
5 weeks is the bye, right? So,
yeah, right.
You think probably,
maybe post bye against Washington, that first game back after.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one to circle as a target date there. Alex Highsmith, I brought up in there as well, going to miss multiple weeks, but no surgery. We had talked about, obviously, he dealt with a groin thing going back to training camp where he missed about a month. I don't know if this is going to be a quicker recovery for him than that, but he's avoiding surgery. Sounds like nothing major. And again, it's a nice little thing to have in the bank that they got Nick Herbig ready to step up into that role.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a good bit about this one yesterday. The big thing is no surgery. I've seen the reports of 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's probably on the optimistic end of
Optimistic,
things. Not
yeah.
saying it can't happen, but I think you're probably.
I mean, again, are we just looking like would it make sense just to post by, against Washington to?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the thing about Highsmith is, they do sort of have a luxury there of being able to bring him along into they could play him a half a role. You know what I'm saying? Where he could dress
Yeah, right.
and split time and kind of like build him up.
Mhm.
As opposed to like a guy who's a backup, like you don't want to dress them unless they're healthy. It's a little bit different. And so
Sure.
I don't know. We'll see. I would say like 2 to 4 probably seems more realistic, and probably if you're ruled out this week on Tuesday, you don't have a great chance of playing next week. Like I just generally think like you gotta generally like that's probably looking at like what's after Dallas, the Giants, the Jets.
No, it's Vegas.
Vegas.
Jets,
Add Vegas. Yeah, okay. Add
Yeah.
Vegas then probably looking at would be the earliest I would say for Alex Highsmith.
And Michael Pruitt, I guess you can kind of drop into that same bucket for him to be already rolled out for a second straight week with a knee injury on Tuesday. I mean, that's not
Pruitt.
great.
We saw like in the locker room on Monday had a huge brace on his knee. And I was a little surprised that he wasn't put on the injured reserve today, honestly.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
I wonder, like they're kind of running out of spots. I'll have to dedicate a morning rush to this at some point. I don't need to get into the inane injured reserve. You can only bring 8 guys back from the injured reserve over the course of the regular season. They've already dedicated 2 of those to Jeremiah Moon and Dylan Cook, so they only got 6 more. You can't just go firing guys on IR all season long. They can stop having so many people hurt.
Yeah. Now, is that once they return though? Like, would Dylan Cook open up one or no? They already used it of one of the 8.
No, already used it.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Well, there you go. All right. Along with that, talked about the Marvin Leal a little bit going into maybe that role as the next outside linebacker guy. Tomlin, I think that you mentioned, even kind of touched on that, saying that he would be that third outside linebacker now. Like, so really they only have 2 traditional guys, and then Leal, who's obviously played some of that, kind of that tweener that's moved around a little bit. And then Marcus Haynes added to the practice squad. But as of right now, you mentioned Jeremiah Moon in there, like he's not walking through this door this week, so they're going to be a little bit thinner at that spot. What do we make of that? Do you think that the Marvin Leal is the guy that can step in and give you some reps there?
He certainly can. He's done it before. I think he even started a game there his rookie year, didn't he? And so I think he can do it. He's obviously not going to be as good, but I think he can do it. The question is, like, they haven't been. If you're using him that much as your third outside linebacker, you're kind of losing some depth on the defensive line. Probably going to need to keep dressing Dean Lowry, I would think, because you're not going to be able to use Leal at both spots. You can't like have it's really hard for a guy to be the number 1 backup at 2 positions on defense. You can't have 2 guys come out of the game at the same time and only have 1 guy to go in to replace him. It just doesn't work. You got to have a couple there. And I mean, it's tough. So I think you probably have another outside linebacker, a guy like Marcus Haynes or Ade Ogundeji come up off the practice squad, or an extra defensive lineman to fully move Marv to outside linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they, navigate that loss. We talked a lot about the running backs yesterday too, maybe a little bit more clarity in some capacity with what's going on there. Said that Jaylen Warren would have a chance to return this week in practice. Actually, you can throw Isaac Seumalo in there as well, but we can talk about that in a second here. But Najee Harris, who had his arm in a sling, apparently fine. I mean, that seems kind of odd 24 hours later to say that he's fine, but it sounds like he's not expected to, have his workload at all decreased in practice, and should be good to go Sunday by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I'm calling BS on fine. Nobody's
See, this is one of those
sling.
moments. Wait, hold on. That moment right there is why, like, if you listen to this show, we appreciate it, but you wouldn't have gotten the full experience if you're not watching on YouTube of what was happening there with the look on Alan's face. But proceed.
I'm not sure I'm buying that he's fine, Smitty. He's wearing a friggin' sling. Have you ever in your entire life known someone that just wore a sling as a fashion?
You know what? Yeah, I was like, I woke up the other day and I was like, you know what? Why not? Just put my arm.
Who was the old professional wrestler that like was a heel and he used this cast on his arm as like a weapon? He just always, it was like always broken, right? Like, but it wasn't really broken. It was just like fake. It was Bob Orton, Cowboy Bob Orton.
Bob Orton.
Yeah, always had the cast on his hey, he just beat him with the cat. Maybe that's what he's going for there. I don't know. No, I guess he's not fine. Maybe he's going to play, and maybe the expectation is he's not going to play with any limitations. But don't tell me he's fine.
Yeah, that's odd. Obviously, like they're not going to put out. I'm just curious as to what it is. Like, that's not something either. Like, would that be something that is
into the gamesmanship of it? Because if Najee never misses a practice rep because of it, then they don't have to put him on the injury report. They don't have to say anything about that injury. And if it's something that they don't want the opposition to target, there's a potential weakness there that they don't want anyone to know about, they don't have to tell us. So, I mean, Najee could be in a lot of pain. He could be extremely limited in effectiveness, and they would be, as long as he takes all his practice reps, they're well within their right to hide that from us. So I don't know if that's what this is or something else. I mean, Tomlin was very forceful in saying that he's fine. So I'm assuming he's going to play. Yeah. Like, I think you should feel safe if you're a fantasy football owner or a gambler or whatever, feeling like Najee Harris is going to play 100%. I don't know. That would have been a good follow-up from Mike Tomlin. It's funny how I always think of the things I should have asked him like 5 hours after I'm in the room with him.
Yeah. No idea what it is that he was dealing with or what it was a precaution against or whatever, but I'm telling you, my plan moving forward, if I was the one calling the shots, everybody's got Jerome Bettis elbow pads. So I don't know if that's going to help in any way.
Just one more reason that everybody needs Jerome Bettis elbow pads. I agree. I've been told they're very difficult to carry the ball with. That you actually have, it's like somewhat challenging to keep it in there.
Not great then.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? The 2024 versions of them, even because Jerome was doing it back then, maybe there's a way to kind of.
Jerome actually just had pieces of tires strapped to his elbow. I'm not even sure they made those as pads. They were just some industrial rubber laying around the south side. He's like, I got this.
I mean, kind of poetic. The bus wearing some tires around his elbow. It comes to fruition. Okay, but there's the health of Najee to some capacity, not really. Jaylen Warren, though, left the door open for him to return this week, but you hear MRI on knee. He's obviously been dealing with a hamstring too. That you feel like I feel like we haven't seen Jaylen Warren be Jaylen Warren yet this season. And now this. What do we make of this? Like, what's your read on this? Do you think that he's not going to play? If he does play, what is he going to look like? Like, where are we at with this?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty significant knee injury if you have to go have an MRI on it. Could he play this week? I guess it's possible. I'd be leaning towards probably not. Certainly going to be limited if he practices at all on Wednesday. Avoiding surgery is certainly good, but that doesn't mean he's going to play right away. And I would not be particularly hopeful about Jaylen Warren playing this week, just based on their sort of history with these kind of things. And also, the point in the calendar, thought Cordell Patterson looked good. Like, why are you pushing things with Jaylen Warren right now? I just maybe, but I think probably not.
And you look at the defenses that they have coming up. 3 of right now, what are the worst defenses in the NFL with the next 3 opponents?
Interestingly, with the Colts, though, they really started to watch some Colts today, and they really turned it around against the Bears. Their run defense had been atrocious in the first 2 weeks, but they were a lot better. Interested to see where that trend goes. They were not a bad run defense team last year. and it's the same coordinator. Gus Bradley's their same defensive coordinator. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see where that goes because certainly, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm
also, I'll be honest. I like Chicago's offensive line. I don't know that I would expect them to be moving a bunch of bodies up front.
That's true.
Like,
they also threw like 53 times, so maybe it was just not so much the Colts stop. No, I don't want to take that cop out. I thought the Colts stopped the run. Okay, like I saw some clips that look good at them stopping the run, and not just the Bears deciding to throw every play. But yeah, I mean, certainly you have to take that. But yeah, 4.1 yards per carry against for the Colts last year. You will take that as a defense about middle of the pack. So I'm interested to see if they'll continue to be as bad as they were the first two games. I doubt they'll be as good as they were against the Bears.
Yeah. My point in saying that though was just like, I think that you approach this with caution, with all the information that you have and the way that Patterson ran in that game, just taking it easy with Warren in general, knowing who you have coming up on the schedule. Like I think they can get by without Jaylen Warren if that is necessary. So I don't know. I'm not saying for sure the arrow is pointing down for him, but I will say the arrow is definitely pointing up for Isaac Seumalo to come back in the near future. Is that going to be Indy? Is it going to be another week? What are we looking at? Don't know at this point in time. But I asked you about Isaac Seumalo even yesterday because of them having that rotation or whatever you want to call it, where Spencer Anderson was in there, but then Mason McCormick ends up playing 25 snaps, both in place of and also as an extra offensive lineman at times. So, like, how do you think that this is going to shake out this week?
I think there's a real chance Isaac Seumalo plays. He was doing some stuff at practice last week. He wasn't necessarily a full participant. Probably won't be a full participant Wednesday, but he could be a guy that I think probably only needs one, right? Like you just he's such a veteran that you don't feel like you need that big ramp up for him. As long as he's feeling good, I think I'd put him out there. Not that Mason McCormick wasn't. He was interesting. I don't know if I'd call him good.
Interesting. Yeah, a better word. Yeah, I mean, like, hey, if we were just gonna line it up and run it like 70 times, Mason McCormick would be the guy that I'm playing.
The run blocking was fun to watch. Najee Harris quite vociferous about it being fun to run behind. He really went all out for Mason McCormick. There were some adventures and assignments, but once he got his hands on you, it was over. You like to see that. I think a guy that the arrow's up on. I don't think Spencer Anderson was. I thought he had a better game against the Chargers than he did against the Broncos. Also, not as good on. Obviously, they don't have a Zach Allen on the Chargers. That's really wrecking things on the inside. And the Colts, well, they do, but he's hurt. DeForest Buckner not going to play in this one. So I don't know. I think there's a chance Seumalo plays. What do you make of this rotation at guard? I think we talked about the idea of rotating tackles, and it was like, that's a terrible idea. What do you feel the same way at guard here with these two?
That's a good question. I don't know that I do. I don't have as much of an issue, I should say. I don't know that I still don't know that I fully understand it, and if you do, maybe you can explain it to me. But I think that there is more credence to doing that when you're talking about a rookie and second-year player in the interior, both trying to figure out that you don't know which one of them. Like in the case of the tackles, one of those guys is trying to carve out a spot, maybe potentially both, to be your long-term future there. And for me, inside, it's like these are depth guys. Maybe Mason McCormick earns a job down the road as a starting guard, but like you're still trying to figure out what these guys even are as that. Like I don't know. I think there's more credence to doing it inside with those two players than with the tackles.
I think it fits better this way, right? Where you have the older player with the lower ceiling who's starting, and then you're kind of working in the younger guy with the higher ceiling here and there. Mason McCormick only played 12 snaps a guard. Like, it's not like he was taking huge oodles of playing time away from Spencer Anderson. I think that makes sense to me, where it's like, all right, we have this young guy, we like him. We're going to carve out this extra O-line role, the jumbo tight end role, and then let's get him a couple series and let's just see how it goes. And then maybe if he continues to progress, maybe next week he'll get an extra one. And I think, to me, it's not so much about the position as it is like this fundamentally makes sense to me, where like trying to force a Broderick Jones that was clearly struggling into the lineup, I don't know. That one didn't make sense to me. This one does, in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Also, neither of these guys are dealing with like an injury.
yeah,
Either that,
right.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I also think in general, like guard is a position that's, like tackle, you learn about a pass rusher over the course of a game, and you kind of make him, you make him fire all his bullets. You're like, oh, okay, I already saw that move. I already saw this move. What else you got? Like, you kind of want to feel like as a tackle over the course of a game, you're kind of learning more about what that edge rusher is trying to do to you. Whereas a guard, there's only 3 things they can do. Like, what they are. It's fine. Like, nobody's reinventing the wheel with like new moves for 3 technique pass rushers. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit less. It's a little easier to rotate at guard than it is tackle. I think it's still clunky, but I think this whole situation feels a lot better than the tackle one did.
I fully agree. I want to ask you about Roman Wilson, though. Like, a lot of people were messaging me like immediately about Roman Wilson not playing on Sunday's game. We talked about the possibility of that happening, though, where he was going to be a healthy scratch for this one, maybe get like another full week of practice and hopefully get a helmet against Indianapolis. Do you feel that is trending that way? Did Tomlin touch on it at all?
So Tomlin talked about it. I thought it was a pretty good quote. Let's see if I can find it here fairly quickly. Because I'd like to read that one. I thought it was pretty good. He said he has to keep working. It's very difficult to get on a moving train. All you have to do is look at Dean Lowry, for example. There's a veteran guy that missed a substantial amount of training camp, and it was the 3rd game before he got a hat, although he's been healthy for weeks. So that gets multiplied when you're talking about a guy that has no NFL experience like Roman. So my advice to Roman is to keep working and take that opportunity when that door is left ajar and be ready when it is. Here's the thing that I think most people are missing when it comes to the context of a rookie and Roman Wilson situation. And I say this every year. I say it a lot, but I feel like I need to say it again. Rookies stink. If you gave me a team of players exclusively that had been cut from practice squads last year and that were not on rosters, but had 3 years of NFL experience or more, and then you give me that team against the first 53 picks of the NFL draft, and we're going to play a game on May 1st, those practice squad guys are going to win by 50. Like, when we go to rookie camp, you'll see a guy who I'm like, last year I watched this guy in training camp, and he was about the 87th best guy on the 90-man roster. He'll be the best player there. He'll be better than the first-round pick. Like, rookies are horrible at football. Now, they have a fast learning curve. Like, they can pick things up quickly because they're incredibly talented physically, especially the highly drafted ones, right? Like, you just have to teach them what to do. They're already really good athletes, and so they can pick it up quickly. But when you take away that entire team development time, you're left with, Roman Wilson is not fundamentally a whole lot different than he was when he left OTAs. And when he left OTAs, he was like the 6th wide receiver on this team. It's going to take a while. And when he doesn't play special teams, has never played special teams in his entire life, and the opportunity to learn how to play special teams is essentially completely passed because they're not going to go live on special teams in practice during the season.
Yeah.
So he can't even really learn it now. Like, that time is over. Maybe they can try to get him out there in some like extra time working one-on-one with guys. I don't know. But like, it's going to be really hard for him to learn how to play special teams now. And he probably will never be an outside receiver regularly. Can he do it here and there? Sure. But he's 5'10". Like, those guys are slot receivers. So he fills one role. He hasn't been filling that role as well as the guys who are already filling. And he's not playing special teams. And he doesn't really know what he's doing. It's not a good recipe. I understand that people are excited about a guy who's a 3rd-round pick. But, like, if you take the 3rd-round pick from the draft and you just teleport them to week 1, they're all awful. Like, if you took every 3rd-round pick and you took away their training camp and their preseason, none of them would be playing right now. None of them. It's not just Roman Wilson.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. So to answer that question, I mean, I feel like Tomlin's kind of setting him up based off that, where it's like there's the possibility that's not even this week that we see Roman Wilson. Do you think that's the case?
Certainly using Tomlin's words, yes. Although I kind of look at the helmet math here and think there's a way to get him in there. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, could they get through a week without losing anybody else due to injury, and then maybe we can have a good sense on Tuesday of what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance they can get him in there. Even if he gets in there, he's going to be wide receiver 4, limited to one position. What's he going to play? 10 reps. Like, I mean,
especially because I'm not, again, whether I'm not predictively going to say it's going to continue, but you saw some nice contributions from Calvin Austin III and Scotty Miller.
What did Scotty Miller do to lose his job? What did Calvin Austin do to lose his job? Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you go to a rookie who's done nothing over those guys right now. I don't. The potential is nice, but the potential doesn't mean anything. You got to win the games now. And it sucks, but that's what happens. Sucks that Troy Fautanu is going to miss this whole year, but injuries are part of the game. And unfortunately, Roman Wilson's injury has put himself in a position where he's not able to contribute to the team right now.
Speaking of that, it's time for our Tomlin Tuesday quarterback talk and seeing where we stand now as a new week begins. Kind of sounds like it's the same old same. They're going to prepare Justin Fields if he's the starter. On the depth chart, though, Russell Wilson still listed as QB1, so nothing really changed. Tomlin didn't come out today and name Justin the starting quarterback going forward, as some people thought potentially could happen. Not saying that you or I were any of those people, but that didn't take place.
I hope none of our listeners were any of those people either.
I don't know. They might have been.
Yeah. He's not gonna commit to anybody before he needs to. He's made that perfectly clear. I don't like what's the advantage for him of doing so? Like, there isn't one. It doesn't change anything for anyone. Justin Fields knows he's going to start this week, probably, and if he doesn't, like, here's the thing: if he thinks right now he's going to start, and then he finds out on Friday he doesn't, you've not harmed Justin Fields in any way. Oh my gosh, I worked really hard to get ready to start this week, and now I'm not. But so there's no reason to do that. I also think that Mike Tomlin was cryptically critical of Justin Fields. He said good things about Justin Fields, and I'm not saying he didn't. He said he's been. I think the quote on the answer to my question was, has played well. There's no question Justin Fields has played well, which is pretty definitive, right? But the rest of this talk here is saying, like, hey, our offense got off to an awful start and was bailed out by the defense and the special teams, and we can't count on that continuing. Okay, so that's one. Then he was asked, well, what do you want the running game? How do you want them to get off to a quicker start? And he said, I don't know that I do. That's not what the running game's about. The running game's about attrition over 4 quarters. The thing that's unsaid there is Justin Fields needs to find us a way to get first downs in the first quarter when we're not running the ball very well, right? Like, that's the part that he didn't say, but that's the only thing left that makes the rest of that. We're just doing algebra here with his words. Like, that's the only thing that makes A minus B equals. Like, there's nothing else left that it could be. And so I thought that was interesting. And then he was asked later about, like, does knowing Justin and being more comfortable, Justin, make him more comfortable with attacking down the field? And he was like, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about converting on third down. Like, a very much like, let us run before we walk kind of sentence about, like, I think you guys think more of him than I think of him, was clearly the sort of underlying message there from Mike Tomlin when he was talking about Justin Fields' performance. So if you think, and it was asked directly, like, how can he improve? And he said he can improve in all areas. Now that's a cop-out answer, but would he have said that about Ben Roethlisberger? Like, it would have been a different cop-out answer, right? And so I think, look, Justin Fields has been better than I expected. He's certainly been good enough to lead the Steelers to 3-0, but it's not like he's been so good that you can't imagine someone else playing. He's about 15th in, like, EPA per play and the sort of advanced quarterback numbers. middle of the road. And so it doesn't do him any good to close a door. It just doesn't.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me, right now, the Steelers are 6th in third down conversions, like in percentage, 43.2%. Like, so you talk about third down, money down's there. I don't know whether he's doing it through the air or they're doing it on the ground. They've converted on third down very successfully. Yeah, I know that the offense has gotten
20 rushing, 22 passing, 10 penalty. That's how they've converted on.
Well, there you go. Yeah. But anyway, also copy and paste that quote about the offense getting off to slow starts since 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. Like, yeah, maybe even further back. 18. 19 for sure. That's almost like we can throw that.
The offense got off the slow start and then never got faster in 19.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to me. And I hear you about, where Justin is as a total body of work so far in the season, about middle of the road and a lot of metrics and stuff like that. But the thing to me there is like the arrow is pointing up though. Like with last week's performance, what we saw, like I'm not for sure going to say that's going to happen, but like to me, the arrow should be pointing up because of the most recent performance that you saw. And I also feel like it was also just like a different game plan. Like it was a different ecosystem that he was put in for this game too. So just assuming that is going to continue, the kid gloves are off. I think that there's more hope there for what that's going to be. So I'm not like saying that Tomlin's wrong. He knows his quarterback more than I do here, but it is kind of interesting to me that like from that performance, what I saw both watching live and then back on tape, that, there was still he could obviously be critical of him, and regardless, you always want your player to be better. But I don't know. Like to me, that is something that I would have expected more in week 1 or week 2 as opposed to the performance that I just saw. Like I don't know that it necessarily lines up for me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I just think it's really interesting that that's the way he said it. I think it certainly is a sign that he wants more from his quarterback position. He's not happy. I mean, I think he made that abundantly clear. That I think the Steelers sort of fan base is very happy about that offensive performance. He is not. He's not okay. And in fact, it was funny. We were talking to somebody, Minka Fitzpatrick, after the game, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked him, like, do you feel like that's an ideal kind of Mike Tomlin game? And Minka was like, no, I think an ideal Mike Tomlin game would involve us scoring 5 more touchdowns.
Yeah, shutting the other team out. Why would anybody else? Yeah.
Like what? No, you don't want to win 20-10. He wants to win 50-0. Like what are you talking about? But I just think there is this sort of I understand the Steelers offense has looked so bad for so long that the signs of life are very encouraging. But there's a long way from what we saw against the Chargers to actually good NFL offense. And there's no guarantee that Justin Fields is the one that takes him there. I fully expect that Justin is going to play against the Colts. What happens beyond that, I think, will be largely determined by how he plays. There's another thing I want to talk about here, too. Okay. Where are you? 3 minutes. Winning, I don't think, has that much to do with it. I understand that, there's you have to do enough to win. And, there are certain components of winning, not turning the ball over, that certainly do have a lot to do with it. But, I think a lot of the fan base feels a lot better about Justin Fields because he's thrown for 518 yards in 3 games and is 3-0 than if he had thrown for 518 yards in 3 games and was 0-3. And considering their point totals, that would be very plausible. And I think you got to kind of ignore that if you're Mike Tomlin and you're trying to evaluate the situation.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Be very curious as to what the people in the comments make of not only those quotes, but also we had a lot of comments of people talking about Justin and, the fact he only has 2 passing touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns on the year and stuff like that. You see Andy Dalton come in and throw 3 touchdowns right away for Carolina. He was also I don't know why people are using that as an example. That was such a bar that should be the bar to set. Andy Dalton right now, the only player with 3 passing touchdowns and 300 yards passing in a game out of any quarterback in the NFL. So I don't know why we're only comparing Justin Fields to that performance, but that's neither here nor there. I think that's it. Anything else, Alan?
I don't know. Did we get to everything? That was a lot. No, I think
that's everything on the list.
That's
I was going to
good.
ask you another question, but I'll save it for tomorrow.
All right, we'll do it tomorrow. And
I will warn you and everybody else, it is related to the quarterbacks.
All right, there we go. No, that's it. Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus, 10% off. Use promo code Allen. Please do it. Google is like killing us and every other small website. Signing up for subscriptions, not reading Google's ads, just reading our words instead makes everyone's life better. So, yeah. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on YouTube.
Oh, I thought you had said maybe you didn't. I mean, I'm just so used to hearing that now. It happened in my mind already. Hit us in the comments as well with your thoughts on anything that we talked about. A question for a future episode, of course. And if you're listening somewhere else, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You will find us there, just like you will find us on TikTok, Steelers Afternoon Drive as well. And then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.